Hey Finxters, today we will be learning how to convert a string to binary. Now when you convert string to binary, it either results in a list of binary values that represent the original characters of the given string, or it represents an entire binary value representing the whole string. So if you have a look at this example, then the given string is xyz and the expected output is either a list containing binary values that represent the original characters, that is, the binary values which represent the characters x, y, and z, or the output can be an entire binary value which represents the entire given string, which is xyz. So let us dive into the different approaches which will help us to solve this problem. In the first approach, we will be using a couple of built-in Python methods, which are bytearray and bin. If you want to dive deep into these methods and learn how they work, then you will find a link in the description to the blog which illustrates the solution to this question. And there you will find the explanation to each and every built-in method that will be used in this lecture. So please feel free to have a look at the blog. Now let's say that the given string is xyz. So we will first convert this given string to a byte array object with the help of the byte array method. So let's do that. Let's say that we have a variable byte underscore arr, and then we are going to use the byte array method. And within byte array, we are going to pass the given string, which is stored within the variable word. And then we have to pass the encoding format. So the encoding format here is UTF-8. So this line of code converts the given string to a byte object. Now, if you are wondering what is the byte object is nothing but it represents the given characters of the string as bytes. So to further clarify this, let's have a look at the byte object. So let's print byte underscore arr. So there we go. As you can see that this right here is our byte object. And if you have a closer look, then you'll find that this string has prefix b before it. So this represents that now the string has been converted to a byte object. Now we will be using a for loop to iterate across each byte and use the bin method upon each byte to convert it into its binary representation. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's use a for loop for byte in byte underscore arr. So this means we are working upon each byte of our byte object. And now we will be converting each byte into its binary representation. That is in the form of 0 and 1. So let's create a variable. Let's name it binary underscore rep equals. And then we will be using the bin method, which will convert each byte into its binary representation. So we will simply pass byte within the bin method. Well, let's also create an empty list res. Now res is the resultant list within which we will be storing the binary representation of each character in the given string. So within the for loop, after we have converted each byte into its binary representation, let's go ahead and append this binary representation to the list. So res.append binary underscore rep. Well, that's it. All that remains to be done is to finally go ahead and print the resultant list, which is res. So that's it. Now let's execute this piece of code. And there we go. As you can see that we have a list which consists of the binary representation of each character in the given string. Now, if you have a close look at the output, then you'll find that every binary representation has a prefix 0b. So this indicates that it is a number represented in the binary system and not in the decimal system. So that is what this prefix represents. Now that you already know that the output is a binary number, hence you can eliminate this prefix. So to eliminate this prefix, you can use slicing. So all you have to do is slice this entire value and start from the second index. So if you look closely, then you'll find that 0 is at the 0th index, B is at the first index, and then the actual binary representation starts. So we can start from the second index until the end of this binary string. So to make this change, all you have to do is go inside your for loop, and instead of simply appending the entire binary representation, what you can do is use slicing and start appending the binary string from the second index. So this is how slicing works. Now let's go ahead and execute this piece of code to find out the kind of output that we have. And there we go. As you can see that we have successfully eliminated the prefix 0b. Well, what if you do not want to store the binary representation of each character within a list? Rather, you want to represent the entire string in its binary form. So that means you simply have to go ahead and merge all these items within the list, and that will represent the entire string's binary representation. So in order to do that, you can use the join method. So instead of simply printing res as an output, what you can do is use the join method and pass res within it. So this will simply go ahead and join all the items of this list and create a single string. So let's execute this piece of code now, and let's find out the kind of output that we have. And there we go. So this string right here represents the binary form of the given string XYZ. So this is how you can convert a given string to its binary form with the help of the byte array and the bin methods. Now let us dive into the second approach that will help us to solve this problem. So the second approach that's going to help us to solve this problem is a one-line solution, which will be using three inbuilt methods once again. So these three inbuilt methods that we will be using are, once again, the byte array method, then the bin method, along with the map function. So let us find out how we can use these three methods in a single line of code to solve this problem. But before we dive into the single line solution, let us try to break this problem down and understand how the solution works, and then we will merge all the concepts that we will be learning into a single line of code and deduce the output. So our first task is to go ahead and convert this given string to a byte array object with the help of the byte array method. So let's go ahead and do that. So let's say that we have a variable byte underscore obj, which stores the byte array object of the given string. So what we do is simply pass the given string to the byte array method along with its encoding standard, which is UTF-8. Now that we have the byte array object, we need to convert it to its binary form. And previously what we did was to use for loop in order to do that, along with the bin method. But now we will be using a combination of the map method along with the bin method to convert this byte array object into binary representation. So let's see how we can do that. Let's say that we will be storing the binary representation within this variable by bin underscore rep. Now we will be using the map method, and within the map method, we have to pass a couple of arguments. Now, if you are wondering how the map method works, then I encourage you to go into the blog, the link to which will be provided in the description below, and have a clear look at how the map method works, because the blog has an entire video which explains how the map method works. In this video, we will be learning how to implement the map method. So the first parameter that we will be passing to the map method is the bin function, and then byte object to this bin method. So what map will do is that it will map this byte array object to the bin method. In other words, every byte within this byte array object will be passed to the bin method, and the bin method will then convert every byte to its binary form and then return it. And now this map method will return a map object. Now, in order for it to be in the readable form, you have to convert this map object to a list. And we can do that with the help of the list constructor. So there we go. We have converted this map object to a list now. Before we proceed further, let us go ahead and print bin underscore rep, and let's find out what it stores. And there we go. As you can see that we have the binary representation of all the bytes present in the byte array object. Well, you can say that this is the answer right here. But let's take it a step further and let's remove the prefix 0b, and then let's merge all these binary numbers into a single string, which will give us the binary representation of the entire string XYZ. So let's go ahead and do that. For that, let's create an empty list res, which will store the actual output. Now let's use a for loop for x in underscore rep. So x is nothing but every binary number present within this list. So this is x in the first iteration, then this is x in the second iteration, and then this is x in the third iteration. So all we have to do is go ahead and append these values to the list res. So res.append, and then let's pass x. But what this will do is go ahead and again create another list which will store nothing but the same list once again. So it will just create another copy of this list, or rather I should say it will create a replica of this list. So what you can do to remove this prefix 0b is to use slicing. So all you have to do is use the square bracket notation, and within this you can slice each byte or each binary number such that the number begins from the index 2 until the end of the number. So this means we will eliminate the first two indexes from each binary number in the list. So let's go ahead and use a print statement to visualize this. Let's print res after every iteration. And let's comment this print statement out because we do not need this output once again. Okay, so let's execute this piece of code now. And there we go. As you can see that the final iteration has all the three binary numbers. And from these three binary numbers, we have successfully eliminated the prefix 0b. Now, all that remains to be done is to merge each of these numbers into a single binary string. And you can do that with the help of the join method. So all you have to do is use a print statement and then use the join method and pass res to it. And that's it. So this will merge all the numbers within this list into a single string. So let's visualize that by executing this piece of code. And there we go. So this is the exact output that we needed. So this is how you can use the byte array bin and the map methods to convert the given string into its binary representation. But I promised you that this is going to be a single line solution. So how are we going to convert this entire piece of code into a single line? Let's have a look. So all you have to do is use a list comprehension and compress this entire code into the list comprehension. So let's say that our variable res represents the list comprehension. And now every list comprehension has two parts. The first part is the expression and the second part is the context. Let's have a look at the context first before we dive into the expression. So let's say that we have a variable, which is the context variable x, which lies within the list that has been created by the map object. And let's try to understand what the map object is doing. The map object is simply going ahead and creating the binary representation of each byte of the given string by passing the byte array object that is being created by the byte array method to the bin method. And then this entire map object is being converted to a list such that the context variable x will now represent each binary number within that list. So for a better understanding, let's say that the expression initially is simply x. I think we missed close a bracket here. Okay, that's it. Now let's go ahead and let's print res and find out how it looks at this point of time. So there we go. As you can see that now res actually represents the list which stores the binary numbers or the binary form of each character in the given string, which is x, y, z. So this right here is the binary representation of x. This is the binary representation of y. And this right here is the binary representation of z. We have to now remove 0p, which is the prefix that indicates that this is a binary number. And in order to do that, we used slicing. So if you see here, we used slicing to remove the prefix. So that is exactly what we can implement within the list comprehension as well. And to implement that, all you have to do is within the expression itself, you can use the slicing like this. So this will slice off the prefix from the binary numbers. Now let's execute this piece of code and let's have a look. And there we go. As you can see that the prefix 0b has been successfully removed from every binary number. Now all that remains to be done is to join all these binary numbers into a single binary string, which will represent the entire given string XYZ. And to do that, we will once again use the join method. So all you have to do is use the join method, and within the join method, you have to pass this list comprehension. So that's it. Now let's execute this piece of code. And there we go. We have successfully derived the binary form of the given string XYZ. Now let's dive into the third approach, which will help us to solve this question. And in the third approach, we will once again use few built-in methods. So these methods are join, format, and bytearray. So this right here is once again going to be a one-line solution. But before we dive into the one-line solution, let us try to break it down and understand the concept, and then we will implement all the concepts and club them together into a single line of code. So let's say that we have a for loop which looks something like this, wherein we have x, which represents a byte within the byte array object created by the byte array method. And within the byte array method, we are simply passing the given string and the encoding format, which is UTF-8. Let's use a print statement. And this is where the magic begins. So previously, we were using the bin method to convert the byte to binary form. But now we will be using format method to do this. So simply put, the format method converts the input of one type into an output of another type. So here we will use format method and pass the input, which is a byte string, and convert it into a binary. So to do that, this is what we can do. Use the format method. And within this, first you have to pass the input, which is the byte represented by the variable x. And then you have to represent the format or the type to which you convert byte object into. So you want to convert the byte object into its binary form. So you have to pass p. So this will tell Python to convert the byte into its binary form. So let's go ahead and let's execute this piece of code to find out how this looks. And there we go. As you can see, first binary number represents x, the second binary number represents y, and the third binary number represents z. Now, once again, what you can do is take all these values and put them in a list, and then join each value to get an entire binary number that represents the entire string. So let's do that quickly. Let's say that we have an empty list res. And now, instead of simply printing the output, let's go ahead and let's append this value returned by the format method. So these values will get appended to the list res. So let's print res now. And there we go. We have successfully appended the values to a list. And now to merge them, let's use the join method. So let's use join and let's pass res within the join method. And now let's execute this piece of code to find out what happens. And there we go. As you can see, that the output represents a binary number, which represents the given string XYZ. So we can merge all these lines of code into a single line of code. And this is how you can do this. Let's say that the result will be stored within this variable res. Now let's implement this section of the code in a single line. So all you have to do is use the format method and pass the input and the output, which is a byte and binary representation of that byte within the format method, and then define the context such that the context represents for x in byte array, and then let's pass the given string, which is word, along with its encoding format, which is UTF-8. So this will return the binary representations of each byte in the given string. Now, all we have to do is to use the join method and club those binary numbers together. So let's do that. Let's use the join method. And within the join method, you have to pass this entire expression. And then finally go ahead and print res. So we do not need these lines of codes. So let's remove them. And all we need is a single line of code, which will help us to yield the output. So let's execute this piece of code. And there we go. We have the desired output. So this brings us to our final solution. And in the final solution, we will be using the join method, the format method, and the ORD method. So this solution is quite similar to the solution that we just learned. The only difference in this solution is that instead of using this byte array method, we will be using the ORD function within the format method, which will convert the given string to its ASCII code. And then that will be converted to its binary form with the help of the format method. So let's understand that with the help of our code. So as I mentioned that we will not be needing this byte array method. So X will simply lie within the given string, which is word. And now the actual changes will appear within the format method. So what we actually need is to convert this word to its ASCII form or to its Unicode form. And how are we going to do that if we are not going to use the byte array method? So that can be done with the help of the ORD method. So within format, you simply have to use ORD, and pass X. So this is the input to the format method, which represents the Unicode representation of each character in the given string. And then this gets converted by the format method to its binary form as an output with the help of second argument, wherein we specify B to indicate that we want to convert the input to its binary representation. So that's it. This is all that you have to do to convert the given string to its binary representation. And now let's go ahead and execute this piece of code to find out if this works or not. And there we go. This is the desired output that we wanted. So this is how you can use the join format and the ORD method to convert a given string to its binary representation. With that, we come to the end of this lecture. If you have any doubts, please mention them in the comments below, and I'll try my best to answer all your queries. Thank you.